From WLWT, this is Issues.
Hello, welcome to Issues. I'm Jan-Michele Lemon Kearney of SESH Communications and the Cincinnati Herald. We have a really great show today. A little later, we're going to talk to Judge Tracie Hunter. We're going to let her tell her story, so that's going to be really, really exciting. First, we're going to talk about kind of a new organization in town, the Black Agenda. So I'd like to introduce to you Ava Jones, who is Communications Director.
Yes, that's right.
And Yzvetta Macon, who is the Director.
Yes.
Welcome, both of you. So Black Agenda kicked off June 11th at Woodward High School, and tell us about that. It was huge.
Okay, well, we had over 1,500 people to come out from the city of Cincinnati, so we're really excited about that.
On a Saturday morning.
On a Saturday morning,
amazing.
yes.
Yeah.
And just ready to get to the work of doing what's best for our community. So we had many sessions, we had healthcare, economics, education sessions, and people came and just gave out what their concerns were in the Black community regarding those areas.
Yeah, I sat in on the media session and the politics session, and so I kind of jumped in on the education session as well, but it seems like the real issue was people from the community were giving input about what's going right, what's going wrong.
And that's what was so important about that day, is so many times, you know, we might talk among community leaders about what's happening, but we didn't get a chance to hear from the people. And that's what that day was about, to hear directly from the people, you know, what they want to see changed here in Cincinnati, you know, for everything, you know, to make it better for our Black community.
I love that, because I know Dwight Tillery, who actually started this, said that, you know, the main thing is for Black people to start planning for Black people.
Absolutely.
You know, right.
So we want to be the leaders of that planning. We want to move forward and create action plans around each of those committees. We are looking for people to come and work with us around those committees. We have committees already going forward, and we just want to be the people at the table, identifying what our challenges are and coming up with our solutions, not having other people to come and tell us what our problems and solutions are. So we want this to be African American led.
For us, by us. I love that.
Absolutely.
So now, Ava, already the Black Agenda has had a big win in City Hall. Tell us about that.
So that was actually during Charlie Winburn's Finance Committee meeting that we had this wonderful opportunity to have a representative of the Kirwan Institute in Columbus come down and really explain what institutional racism is and how it you know, may function without people knowing its existence in our community and also in our city government. So
explain what is institutional racism.
So really it's a set of rules and regulations that people, you know, put in place, you know, our forefathers put in place to stop a certain segment from going to, say, a different school, or to not be able to buy property in certain locations. So, you know, those are some things that affect Black people, but they don't necessarily think of it as racist because it's a zoning law. But institutional racism impacts our community greatly. And our win was that we were able to have City Council unanimously support this motion to find out what those structures are in Cincinnati government, and then find out how they can change it to be more inclusive to the Black community.
And Cincinnati is really the first city in the country where City Council passed such a resolution to actually study institutional racism and look at it and see, you know, does it exist? And Black Agenda is assuming it does.
Yes, absolutely. And that's, you know, it speaks volumes to our City Council for them being able to notice this and take this on and, you know, hire a person to go in and do all that work and figure out how we can become a more inclusive Cincinnati.
So then what happens next? What kind of next steps are there?
So currently we have identified what our committees are. We have already sent out invitations to the community volunteers who wanted to sign up and work on these committees. We are already in that work. We had started working on our committees in September. We're now in the second round of meeting for most of our committees. So we are identifying 2 to 3 goals from the the concerns and solutions that were identified at the June 11th meeting.
Great.
And
yeah,
we're going
as
to,
I recall, not to interrupt, but someone took notes in each session. There was like a big Post-it note on the board, and everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the scribes were there taking notes, so that's great to capture
so
those
they captured
ideas.
all of that information. So now we're reviewing that information in each of our committees, and we are narrowing down all that information because the committee came out with a lot of concerns, but they also came up with a lot of solutions to address those concerns. So now we're going to narrow that down and come up with 2 to 3 goals for each of those committees and come up with a action plan to address those concerns moving forward. And then the Black agenda as a whole will create a strategic plan to move forward to address everything.
And you know, so why is the action plan piece so important? Because a lot of groups come together and they say, you know, here are the things that are wrong, but I keep hearing Black agenda emphasize action plan.
The reason for that is because, again, we want to make sure that the Black community is the one that's moving forward in addressing these issues. So we need to have a pathway on how we're going to do that. And we want to do it strategically. So we have many high-powered Black organizations and Black individuals that are coming together that have actually made up our board to move that work forward, and they will be putting forth that strategic plan in the next 3 to 5 years to make sure that we're addressing the issues that the Black community has come up with.
And I like that, you know, the fact that lots of organizations were invited. Why is that so important, though, Ava?
Well, we believe that there is a strength in unity and in numbers and togetherness, and that's why, you know, we have Bishop Hilton from the National Action Network. That's why we have, you know, different representatives from
NAACP.
NAACP.
The Urban League was invited. Yeah.
Urban League, our Pan-Hellenic Council representatives here in the Cincinnati area. So there's so many different people and organizations that, you know, together we have a collective voice.
And we didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, we're saying CAA is also at the table. We have arts and culture, the Black theater is involved with us. So we just have really strong leaders. Of course, we have the chamber that's with us as well with Eric Kearney, who you know very well as your husband.
I met him, yeah, right.
So yes, we are just very excited. And having the Herald, the media, is going to be a part of that.
Great.
And thanks to you, Jan. So we appreciate that so much.
Well, thank you for including us. So let's give people a number to call because folks are saying, wow, that sounds interesting. I want to come to a committee. I'd like to get involved. It's open to everybody. So the number that I have is 513-585-9879.
That's correct.
That is
Okay,
correct.
tell us again. What's that number? Oh, and Jeff has it up on the screen.
Okay,
Black
great.
Agenda Cincinnati Movement. Give us that number to call.
So that's 585-9879. Of course, you can reach us also on our website, which is theblackagendacincy.com. So C-I-N-C-Y.
Okay. And so we will connect people through WLWT.com. So meetings are going on now. Everyone, all the committees have met once, it sounds
Absolutely.
like. And so now they're getting ready for the second meeting. Okay, so it's not too late to join. So people want to
Not
call
at
that
all.
585-9879. You'll have to come back and keep us updated. Let us know about progress.
We look forward to
absolutely.
it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. We'll be back in a moment with Judge Tracie Hunter. Welcome back. Well, I'd like to welcome our next two guests, and they are Judge Tracie Hunter, judge for the Hamilton County Juvenile Court. Welcome, Judge Hunter. And Vanessa Enoch, who soon will be Dr. Vanessa Enoch. She's getting her PhD from Union Institute, and I want to thank you for all the wonderful reporting you've done when Judge Hunter was in court, and you've given articles to the Cincinnati Herald, and we really appreciate that. And it's good to have that firsthand information. So, you know, some people are for you, some are against you, some don't know what to think. Let's just go back, because we want you to tell your story, Judge Hunter. So give us a little bit about your background.
Well, I am from Cincinnati, a native for the most part. I grew up in Forest Park, Ohio. My family still resides in Forest Park. I went to Ursuline Academy for the majority of my high school career, and then my last year I spent at Forest Park. And then I went to Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and then eventually to the University of Cincinnati College of Law, where I received my Juris Doctor.
Wonderful. Now, you practiced law, and you also had your radio show, and,
Yes.
and you're also a pastor.
Yes.
Okay. And then you ran for the bench for the Hamilton County Juvenile Court against John Williams, who's
Yes.
currently on the bench. And that's when maybe all the trouble started, right? Because what happened with that election?
It actually started, I think, in 2010 when I announced that I was going to run, and as you might remember, I was not originally the choice of Tim Burke. And he fought me every step of the way until I won the primary with a very, very large sweeping win. And I went on to the general election. And at the general election, there were a few votes that separated myself from my opponent, John Williams. And so I immediately filed a lawsuit when I realized that the Board of Election had thrown out thousands of votes in the predominantly African American and Democratic precincts. So I filed.
And they said because they were provisional ballots, wasn't that it? And they weren't planning on counting them?
It was majority provisional ballots that they said had been cast in the wrong precinct, when after I filed my lawsuit, we were able to prove that most of the people that voted in the wrong precinct had been sent there by precinct workers, in essence, the Board of Election. And so when I filed the lawsuit in federal court, which took close to 2 years.
It was a long fight.
It was
Yeah.
a very long and arduous fight.
Yeah.
I eventually prevailed. The Hamilton County Prosecutor Joe Dieters represented the Hamilton County Board of Election against me in that entire lawsuit. And so when I finally prevailed, there was a lot of animosity and hostility that was directed at me from the prosecutor's office, and it didn't go away. It just heightened after I was sworn in May 25th, 2012. Then it just went uphill and began to escalate from that day forward, with continued challenges and from the prosecutor and attacks that were being daily made against me as a judge on the bench.
And this is while you were on the bench.
While I was on the bench.
And I should just mention, so Judge John Williams did, he was actually appointed and later won his seat, so he's also on the bench, so everything went fine with him. But meanwhile, you're on the bench as well. And then, tell us about reforms, because we heard you were making really positive changes in court.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the first thing that happened is that I realized right away, within less than 3 months, that the juvenile court for years had been sending statistics that were inaccurate or false to the Ohio Supreme Court. And because as judge, I had to sign off on any documentation that was sent from the court, I began to do a close and thorough investigation and discovered the statistics were wrong, which resulted in a complete overhaul of the juvenile court management system.
Wow.
to ensure that now, today, those statistics are accurate. I also initiated taking shackles off the children.
And that was huge, right?
It
Because
was.
kids were actually in shackles when they came to court.
They came in, they had stomach shackles around their waist. It literally looked like a scene out of Roots, to give you a great visual.
Right.
They had shackles around their ankles, they were handcuffed at their wrist. And
these are kids, these are juveniles, yeah.
Little children,
Right.
and it didn't matter their ethnicity. They would come in, and oftentimes it was not necessarily an offense that warranted them being treated in that manner. And so I sat down and I tried to negotiate with the court for us all to come in agreement and unshackle the children. John Williams wasn't willing to do it. The sheriffs didn't want to do it. They were afraid of the children. And I just went ahead and passed a court order in April 2013 and said, unshackle the children, do not bring them in my courtroom shackled anymore. And interestingly enough, even though they fought me on that, this year, as a matter of fact, 2016, the Ohio Supreme Court passed as statewide reform, and now all courts must do exactly what I started 3 years ago, and that was to unshackle the children, unless you can find a reason that would necessitate them being shackled.
Right. So you actually had the vision for that, and
Absolutely.
now it's law. So right.
Absolutely. And then there was another law that actually was as a result of my actual case rulings. The prosecutors did not want to turn over exculpatory evidence in juvenile court cases, and the law, just the spirit of the law, dictates that if there's information.
And we should say exculpatory is evidence that shows someone might not be guilty.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And they wanted the children just to come in and to plea, and oftentimes the defense lawyers would ask for evidence. They would ask for police reports, ask them if there's any information that could possibly exonerate the children. They were entitled to it, and I agreed with that. And so I consistently passed rulings that they needed to turn this information over or provide it to me as a judge so that I could do an in-camera inspection and determine if it should be provided. And the prosecutor's office absolutely refused to turn this information over. And so finally, my cases were appealed. The First District Court of Appeals overruled me, but then the Ohio Supreme Court upheld my decisions, and now it is law in the state of Ohio that they must turn over police reports and all exculpatory evidence. And so I changed law in the state of Ohio yet again.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to come back in a minute, and Vanessa, we are going to give you a chance to talk. So
No problem.
we're getting there. All right, stick with us. We're going to be back. We're going to talk more with Judge Tracie Hunter and Vanessa Enoch, who's almost Dr. Vanessa Enoch any day now. Stick with us. Welcome back. We're here talking with Judge Tracie Hunter of the Hamilton County Juvenile Court and Vanessa Enoch, who writes for the Cincinnati Herald, and she's a freelance writer as well, about to get her doctorate from Union Institute. Welcome back. Yeah. So Judge Hunter, and we should say you explained that your seat, you still are in that position. Explain that.
Yes, I am. My seat my first term does not expire until December 31st, 2016. I was suspended from the bench based on the conviction. However, I was not removed. There's only two ways to remove a sitting judge, and that is through actual removal or through legislation. And there have been actual judges that have been appointed to new seats while I've been off the bench. No one has been appointed to fill my seat by the governor because I still hold that seat as the current judge of juvenile court. Yes.
Okay.
They can't fill it.
Okay. So let's talk about the whole felony thing. So there were 9 charges brought against you.
Yes.
Hung jury on 8 of them.
Yes.
You were convicted of 1.
Yes.
And the day of the trial, what happened? And we could go. I know Vanessa wants to pitch in about that whole trial.
I think. When you say the day of the trial, are you talking about the start of the trial or?
Well, we were going to jump to the day of the conviction.
Right after the conviction.
What happened with the jurors, but I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the trial a little bit.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing about the trial that jumps out to me is who that jury was composed of, which is, it was incredible that there were so many connections to the prosecutor's office, to judges, and various relationships within the court. For example, John Williams, a guy who said that he was John Williams' close friend, as well as Kirk Kissinger's close friend, was on that jury. Somebody who identified themselves as a neighbor of Judge Heather Russell was on that jury. There was an individual who said that they were the mother of a police officer in North College Hill, which was one of the issues that came up during Judge Hunter's trial. Judge Hunter had prevented the news reporters from mentioning names and faces of accused children who were involved in a North College Hill incident. And those individuals in that community had to face the KKK coming into the community and camping outside of the school, of the junior high school children. And elementary. I'm sorry, elementary, and I think it was also some junior high.
All right, so
the schools are connected.
So you were really concerned about the jury as a reporter sitting there, and then
Absolutely.
Judge Tracie, and and we, in the few minutes we have left, we can't go through the whole trial. Maybe another show we can talk about that, because that's a whole story in itself. But at the end, you were convicted of the 1 felony charge, had to do with helping your brother, and
well, I was accused of securing a public contract. And securing a public contract means that you give employment a contract to someone. My brother worked for the Hamilton County Juvenile Court for 7 years prior to me being elected. I had absolutely nothing to do with him being there. And so that was a shock that they were able to, that charge actually should have been thrown out because it just did not meet the criteria of the statute. But more importantly, immediately following the trial, I received a call, or my lawyer received a call, and then he called me the same day as the trial and said that the jurors had contacted him through a radio station and said that guilty was not their verdict, and that they were trying to get the information to the right persons. And so we recommended actually that they get an independent lawyer to validate their verdict. And for whatever reason, it took the lawyer like almost a couple of weeks for that information to get out. He instructed the jurors apparently to call the judge or to send a letter to the judge, and Judge Nadel never came forward and acknowledged that those jurors the same day immediately following trial said the guilty was not their verdict. And had he polled them, which by law he's supposed to do according to Criminal Rule 31, immediately upon a conviction or even an acquittal, both sides can ask for a jury to be polled, and by law you're supposed to do it. And when my lawyer immediately stood up and said we want to poll that jury, Judge Nadel said, absolutely not. I refused to, and he wouldn't do it. And so it almost gives suspicion, it begs that they knew that there were jurors who had dissented. And so 3 of them, every single African-American juror on that jury, came forward with a sworn affidavit saying that not guilty was not their verdict. And one of them even said that she had been severely harassed by the jury forewoman. And the jury forewoman was the wife of a lawyer who worked for WCPO, and WCPO sued me multiple times while I was on the bench because I passed a court order prohibiting the publishing of the names and faces of the children.
Oh my goodness. And so that happened, but then it went to you appealed it, the First District Court of Appeals upheld the conviction, and now what?
Right now it's at the federal court. I filed a petition for habeas corpus, which was received by the federal court, and it's currently being completely reviewed. But I will say, one of the great travesties, and the reason I became a judge is so that I could help to institute fairness throughout the criminal justice system. And not only have I been completely abused as a person, this happens to a lot of people, but my case particularly, because it was so egregious and all of the parties were connected, it was the Republican Party coming after me, the prosecutor's office coming after me, and all of them worked together, and so it should have been removed to a different county. And so I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, Jan, to come forward and to tell a little bit of this story.
I know there's so much more to talk about, so we'll just have to have you back. I really appreciate you coming, Judge Tracie. Vanessa, Ina, I really appreciate you coming and covering the trial. So stay tuned. There'll be more to happen. Oh, and if anyone wants to get in touch with Judge Tracie Hunter, the number to call is 513-662-6247.
Yes.
And Jeff has it up on the screen, 513-662-6247. And that's in Western Hills Brethren in Christ Church.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for coming and sharing your story. And there's so much more, and you will see what happens. So,
thank you.
Okay, and Judge Hunter has a lot of faith, and we didn't have a chance to talk about that, but just know that, that you're doing okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Stick with us. We'll be back in a moment with Michael Bobo. We've got Michael Bobo with some community events for you.
First up, we have Voices of the Overcomers, a joyous celebration for the courageous. Saturday, October 29th, 8:30 a.m. to noon at the Doubletree Suites located at 6300 East Kemper Road. Tickets are $15. For more information, call 550-9074. And next up, we have a night at the museum, Emerald and Diamond Experience. Saturday, November 12th at 6 p.m. located at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center at 50 East Freedom Way. Tickets are $125. This is cocktail attire, and there will be fashion and
Ebony
music.
Fashion Fair models. Woo!
Yes.
Bring back the Ebony Fashion Show. Music by Natural Progression. Have a great week. Stay safe and stay positive.